Senate Democrats do not support an alcohol tax increase, but the House Democrats do. Last week you seemed like you were open to it. Where do you stand on that issue?
Well, I think we need to go to conference committee if they have different views. And I made my tax proposal. I stand on what I propose. I think it's sufficient for the budget that I propose. So whatever they have that's different from mine is certainly their prerogative. But I'm not going to take sides until we get into the negotiations.
That seems to be a little bit different from what you were saying a couple of months ago when you were cool to the idea and didn't think it was a solution. Are you moving along with that?
If I'd been enthusiastic about it, I would have put it in my budget proposal. I didn't. So I guess cool would be accurate word. But, we'll be involved in negotiations. And I've always said compromise means you agree to two things you don't agree with, and there'll have to be compromise among the three of us, House, Senate, myself, in order to get things resolved. So I'm not going to draw any lines.
Governor, what about the return of the sales tax broadening? That was in your original proposal. Might you be open to it if the Senate takes a strong position?
I'm not going to rule anything out, but I believe that the only way that my proposal was fair was to have businesses and consumers who are now taxed the same on sales tax purchases to be treated equally, and without that, it's a regressive tax on middle-income Minnesotans, and that I do not support.
Governor, just the other, obviously they arrested who would be the alleged Boston Marathon bomber the other day. But what are you doing in terms of ensuring that some things like that don't happen in Minnesota? Not the arrests, but the actual incident.
Well, without going into details, there's certainly heightened security at many places and events, and some of that's private sector initiative, and some of that is state and local and law enforcement. What happened there was so horrific that just the fact that two people that, so far as is known, plot it and carry it out is just really unspeakable horror. So we'll do everything we can. Absolutely do everything we can.
Governor, the majority leader of the Senate said this morning that some Democrats may lose the election in 2014 because of these tax increases.
Because of what?
Because of the tax increases, which are tending to go through. Are you worried you might be one of them?
I guess he has the luxury of being not up until 2016, so that gives him a very legitimate perspective. I think the collection last fall, Minnesotans were saying, they had a choice between no tax increases and even more severe cuts in health and human services, education, higher education. And I believe the message was, we want you to continue to make cuts where you can, but we don't want to go to that extreme. We want you to raise taxes progressively on the wealthiest Minnesotans, which has been my proposal all along, and then invest that money in the jobs of the future, the education that young people are going to need for those jobs of the future, and improving and rebuilding our infrastructure, which is what my focus, and I believe the legislative focus has been. And I think a year from now we'll have some very good results to show people in Minnesota. We're seeing progress already, and ultimately Minnesotans will be a judge in November of next year.
The Republicans will say, Governor, that this has gone significantly beyond, or at least there's a good chance it'll go significantly beyond just the higher brackets. That it'll be cigarette tax, alcohol tax, maybe even sales tax hits middle-income Minnesotans.
As you know, at this point in the legislative session, a lot of ideas on the table and as part of the bills that aren't going to make it through the final process. So to take the array of possible suggestions and turn them into items that are all going to come to pass is just not the case. I think, again, when we come out with a final proposal, that'll be something that Minnesotans and everybody can rightfully focus on, and that'll be the test.
Senator Block said earlier today that it's been difficult to manage the expectations of labor organizations. What's been your experience so far this session in working on some of your priorities?
Well, I don't know what he was referring to, but I would just say in general, not limiting it to labor organizations, but there are a lot of people for 20 years the state's been cutting back on support for higher education, for health and human services, and there are a lot of very legitimate needs out there in nursing home staff have not had raises for 4 years. Personal care attendants, the same child care providers, have not had an increase in their payments. So there's a lot of very legitimate, pent-up need for, again, additional resources, and so we're all doing our best to respond to that. And in addition, we have to make up a $627 million projected deficit before we even get started on the next biennium. So it's a challenge to balance that out, and I think we'll do as well as we can. And we can start the next biennium after we've dug ourselves out of this financial hole that we inherited when I came in. Remember, the deficit 2 years ago was projected to be $6 billion, $6.2 billion, and now it's $627 million 2 years later. So that's 1/10 now of what it was 2 years ago. But we paid off 2/3 of the school shift. We still have a third to go. So we've come a long way out of the financial hole that was left to us. But we still have more that we need to accomplish, and we'll do so. And 2 years from now, if I'm around, or even if I'm not, but we'll have a chance as a state to really start laying the foundation, the framework for the investments we need to make to really make a better state.
Just to follow up that real quick, are you prepared to be the guy who has to say no, though, at the end of the day, knowing what's going through the House and the Senate? I mean, are you preparing yourself to have to be able to say no to some of these interest groups as they move forward?
I mean, I expect I'll have to say no to probably everybody, that comes with the job. So I'm prepared to do what I need to do to make this a budget that I'm proud of, but I believe it's good for the people of Minnesota, and I do my best to work things out. Most of the people involved are my friends. A lot of the Republicans are my friends, but we go back a long ways, a number of the legislators and I think we have good relationships. So I'm hopeful we can work it out, and that won't happen all the time, but that's the nature of this pursuit.
Thanks.